there, and welcome to our next episode of Capture Guru. Today we're doing a shoot for natural medicine, and we're working with Chef Christiaan, and we have Fritz Schoon with us, who's a baker, and we are going to be finding out a bit more about bread and the best way to purchase bread, what's good and what's bad about bread, and they're going to give us a lot of information. So guys, I just starting off got one question. A lot of people are constantly saying to me, bread is not great, bread is not good for you, or things like that. But then if I think back in time, in Mediterranean for example, people ate bread for centuries and it was very healthy and there wasn't the heart problems and things that we got now. Is there anything that's truth in that or that we should be aware of?
Yeah, I think you just need to go back and look at how bread's produced commercially. And I'm a big advocate of bringing back making food at home. So whether it's yogurts, cheese, making your own ricotta. And the same really applies to baking bread at home. And Fritz can add to that.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you're busy looking back, you've got to see how the grain was processed at the time. It was used in its whole form. It was used fresh. And that's where we went wrong. We made the product void of any nutritional value in order for it to be able to have a shelf life, to transport long distances, and that's where we got into a bit of a sticky situation, because a lot of unnatural products were used to keep on sustaining it, and I believe that's what people have become intolerant to. Not so much the original product, but the chemicals that go beyond the process.
So would you say then that we need to think about, rather looking at growing our own, getting locally grown grains and things, would you say that is the way to go?
Yeah, if we could get back to local grain production, local grain communities, and a local mill with local bakeries, you'll see a drastic change in the health and well-being of the community, no doubt.
So we could go back to eating bread, and that would be...
For sure.
I mean, grain should be regarded as a living seed. It is a living seed.
Okay.
And I think what we've done is, over time, convenience has played king up till now, and it's to pull back and say, what about that life force within that seed, and utilizing that seed as fresh as possible. And today we've been experimenting, grinding straight from the stone mill, straight into processing, into fermenting the dough. And the aromas and the flavors that are coming out of that dough, and just eating it raw is just incredible.
Just in talking about that and locally grown grains and bread, what would you say is the fundamental problem with bread that we're buying off-shelf, modern day bread, so mass-produced bread?
So I think in the processing, and Christiaan can take over at some point, but we definitely went back when the people became more sensitive. We looked at the product that we were selling and said, listen, what are we doing here? And we went back to the production. So when it comes off the land, if we can find a grain that's well grown with minimal intervention, a healthy grain coming from the land, that's where we've got to analyze it. It goes to mills where the sets of roller mills will remove the wheat germ and the bran, which is the stuff that feeds the gut, feeds the body. That's removed, and only the gluten-forming protein endosperm is left. That gets milled into a very fine powder. So I believe, firstly, the body doesn't recognize that product. And I think that's a big problem. But let's say the process is you can get it into a stone mill. Let's say we can get a well-farmed grain into a stone mill. The important part of the process follows, and that is a natural fermentation or enzyme activity creation. And Christiaan will tell you a little bit about phytic acids, which is important.
I think it's really important to remember that I think modern day bread's probably made in an hour or two. I stand to be corrected, but it's a very fast process. So from this high gluten over processed flour, it's processed really quickly. There's various additives added to give different textures, lightness, preservatives, and I think our palate, it's almost like eating cake. And now there's strong movement towards artisanal baking. And now you've got crusty, maybe more dense bread, but then you've been exposed to amazing flavors. And it's having to use your teeth again to bite through a crust. We've got to use our teeth, otherwise we're going to lose them. And it's really important that grains need to be fermented. Our gut doesn't process raw grains well. And through the fermentation of slow bread making, whether it takes place over 12 hours or 24 hours, part of that digestion is being done like a ruminant animal. It's got 4 stomachs. The process of that digestion takes hours and hours and hours. And the same for humans, we're utilizing the fermentation process of bread making as part of our digestion, so that when we eat it, that we can really benefit from that bread.
And just people going out and buying bread or wanting to make bread at home, are there any tips that you can give them, or just let them know what they should look out for when buying bread? You know, you walk into a store and there's just a whole range from low GI to this, and you know, at the end of the day, we're just completely confused about what's in front. Is there any sort of tips you could give our viewers about that?
I think from my point of view, bread should consist of 3 ingredients. And I think everything after that you should start analyzing. You know, we can go a step ahead further than that and ask about the farmer and their practices, but I think the best place to start is when you want to buy a loaf of bread from the shelf, turn it around, look at the back label, and see, other than good salt, water, and flour, why are there still 30 other ingredients in there? And is that something my body will recognize? Is that something natural?
And that's all you really need are those 3 elements.
For sure. That's all we use.
Amazing. And the yeast in that, is that not exactly, how is that then?
So our yeast, our natural starter, consists of flour and water.
Okay.
And it is going to the bacteria in this environment, or the environment that we've created in this space, is obviously one they flourish in, and we'll just use that to add to our dough to get leavening.
That's why it takes so long, is that?
Yeah, it reacts a little bit slower, but we also control it to take slower.
Okay.
Because we don't want any of the sour flavors, we just want the method. We still want a beautiful, creamy flavor coming from the wheat grain. And so we just use the natural fermentation as kind of inoculation, and then we control it with temperatures.
And if I want to make my own bread at home, do you think we could do it in a home environment?
For sure. Listen, if you start with a commercial yeast in the beginning to not knock your confidence, that's a good thing. But source, pick one of the good stone milled flours out there. That's a good place to start. They have no chemicals in, and I know most of the farmers, so that's a win. Some good salt and water, and then all you want to do is blend the ingredients together and gently work it by hand, building a structure. And then, we're going to bake Christiaan's loaf in a pot. It's easier, and that helps the home baker. Hopefully we can get more people to bake it out. That's the plan.
I'm looking forward to trying that. Well, guys, thanks so much for sharing this information with us and allowing us to chat to you and photograph your beautiful recipes and breads and that. And to our viewers, take note of what's been said here. You can eat bread, but do it properly. Watch what you're eating. And like we said in previous episodes, it's really important to see what's going into your diet. And don't forget, if you've got any comments, press the like button and share this program to get out to as many people as possible. Thank you.